Well, is the United States Supreme Court going to bail Donald Trump out once again? A series of cases have made their way finally to the United States Supreme Court after about 5 weeks of the Trump administration. We've got about 40 preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders entered by federal judges, and two are making their way up to the United States Supreme Court. We break it all down for you the only way we know how on Legal AF After Dark. Take a listen. We got a couple of things that happened. Judge Ali in the District of Columbia, not to be confused with Judge Ali Khan, who's a different judge. Judge Ali is pissed off and fed up, and her hand is up to her chin with the Trump administration. She ordered them to unfreeze aid, several $billions worth of aid through an organization now shuttered called USAID, which helped people, downtrodden people in what we used to refer to as the third world, all around the world, from famine relief, AIDS, other medical conditions that require medevacs and things like that. I mean, this is just inhumane to have shut off that spigot, or as one judge referred to it, cut off the fuel supply to this, like a plane while it was flying, which is ironic given what's happening with the FAA and this Trump administration. And Judge Ali Khan said, no, I now have to do a mandatory injunction. See, another legal AF breakout. An injunction is generally prohibitive. It tells somebody to stop doing something in order to return to the status quo. But because she ordered them to stop freezing the money, they didn't thaw out the money quick enough. And now she's ordered them to pay the money. That's a mandatory aspect of an injunction. You pay the money by midnight tonight, 1 minute before midnight tonight. I mean it, or else. They didn't like that. So the Trumpers, with their acting Solicitor General, because their soon-to-be Solicitor General, as Karen, you pointed out, is in confirmation process right now, she filed a petition to take it up to the United States Supreme Court about this issue. So now we've got front and center, can Donald Trump, as the President of the United States, unilaterally cut off funding appropriated by Congress, who alone controls the purse strings, and do what's called an illegal impoundment of that money, and rather than execute on money already allocated, can he cut it off completely, regardless of its ramifications and impact around the world? Does a president, through an executive order, have the ability to cut the legs out from under a congressional spend order or allocation? That is at the basis of all of this Doge cutting, Musk cutting, and I guess they want to use this case as the test case to take it to the Supreme Court. Karen, why don't you jump in with either what Judge Ali said and why she made this mandatory injunction for midnight tonight? Well, we won't be on the air at that moment, but we will report on it quickly. And what do you think the United States Supreme Court, you know the makeup of the Supreme Court, what do you think they do with this fundamental issue about the separation of powers?
And what I don't understand is they control Congress. I don't understand. Okay, if you no longer want to fund these programs, then just go pass a law. Have Congress do it properly. I mean, there's a way to get this done. If this really is a mandate that they think they have, then just get Congress to pass a law, change their mind. Okay, we're no longer going to appropriate funds to help all the people around the world that we've been helping all this time. And then what can happen is Congress passes a law, and then programs can wind down in an orderly fashion. But unfortunately, instead, they're just trying to just stop it before it goes out, while there's food waiting in ports that is going bad, and medication waiting in warehouses. I mean, there's like real life things waiting to continue on the journey of what was already allocated. It's just being done in such a haphazard, crazy way. And the judges are basically saying, look, this is arbitrary and capricious, right? Those are legal words that no lawyer on the losing side ever wants to hear, right? That you acted arbitrary and capricious. I mean, because it just means it's the opposite of being legal. It's the opposite of being deliberate. It's the opposite of being surgical, right? It's just, you're just doing it without any consideration whatsoever of the law, of the rules, etc. So look, it's clear to me that that they're going to lose all the way up to the Supreme Court. What will the Supreme Court do? Your guess is as good as mine. I think the Supreme Court will ultimately not rule in Trump's favor. I don't think they can do this. Look, I'm really glad, Popok, you reminded everyone and you explained that getting an injunction is not, it's not like handing out candy, right? It's not easy. Getting a judge to order an injunction is such a high hurdle. It's such an extraordinary thing. It is a very, very big deal and hard to get. The fact that there's already over 40 injunctions against the Trump administration, it really is, all these judges, all these court cases are saying, you're going to lose. You don't even have a chance of winning. And by the way, the harm you're causing is irreparable, and the damage is terrible. And so I think by the time they get to the Supreme Court, I don't think the Supreme Court is going to allow them to just violate the law and run roughshod around all of the various controls and checks and balances, et cetera, that exist. So that's what I think is going to happen. But and
Mhm.
the district court judges are all signaling and giving the Supreme Court exactly what they need to rule that way. I mean, do you? I mean, I know you follow the Supreme Court much closer in your on the Legal AF channel, and you have the show with Dina Dahl. So, what are you seeing? I mean, I'd love to hear really your take on that. But I think this even is a bridge too far for the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
even though they have the conservative majority.
I think the reason, to answer a question you asked at the start of your analysis, I think the reason that they're not going through with court, I mean, sorry, through Congress, is because even though they have the quote unquote majority, you can see it's a do nothing Congress. They can't get anything done. They have a very slim majority. Hakeem Jeffries is effectively the Speaker of the House for the on the Democratic side, and Trump knew that coming in. He knew he was going to have to rule by fiat, have to rule by executive order, and then take his chances where the chips may fall. They figured, listen, the Democrats and the moderate groups and the public interest groups, attorneys general, we're playing the portfolio method also. We're filing multiple cases on the same issue in different courts, not to get a different result, but just to make sure that we have the right judge, the right facts, the right ruling to take up on an ultimate appeal in the right appellate court to get to the United States Supreme Court ultimately, as we try to line up our best foot forward in all of these cases. Of the 60 or so executive orders that Donald Trump has issued, the top 10 that deal with issues that matter to you and me and our audience are all up and enjoined, except for I think one. I mean, I think the success rate now is over 98 or 99%. Doesn't mean the Supreme Court can't say, yeah, we don't agree with any of you. We saw that before. We know the immunity decision started out as a very good decision by Judge Chutkin, and it was a very good decision by the DC Court of Appeals, 3-0. And then when it got to the Supreme Court, they go, you guys are all wrong. That's not how you're supposed to analyze the separation of powers and the powers of the presidency when it comes to criminal conduct. They're like, it isn't. Why isn't it, based on all the case law? So they can just, it's like an etch-a-sketch for them. It's not supposed to be, and they're like, well, we're just going to start all over again and make our own ruling. A couple of days ago, I talked about it on Popok Live, my show on Tuesday nights. A couple of days ago was the anniversary of the passage of Marbury versus Madison, which for lawyer geeks like you and me, back in 1807, it is the case that set the Supreme Court on its path to be a co-equal branch of government. If it wasn't for John Marshall basically interpreting what the Constitution said and saying, yeah, we're Article 3. This is what we're supposed to do versus Article 2 and Article 1, President in Congress. If it wasn't for Marbury versus Madison, in which I spent 3 weeks talking about Marbury versus Madison in my law school class, there wouldn't be a Supreme Court the way that we know it. Now, a lot of people will argue, especially on the show, we don't have a Supreme Court the way it was envisioned by John Marshall. And I don't totally disagree with that. Let me segue. So Congress was there. I think the Supreme Court, I think if they had to take one case up, and there's going to be many cases up on this same point, I feel pretty good about this particular case being on U.S. aid. I think it is a violation of the separation of powers, the spending clause, the role of Congress. So even this Supreme Court doesn't like executive orders making law. And it's the weakest way for a president. It's the easiest way for a president. What is it? It's a Sharpie, a blue folder, and a press, in a press conference in the Oval Office. Look what I did, like a 2-year-old with a paint set. That's the easiest thing to do, but it's the weakest in terms of legal justification or bases. And that's why they often are found to be invalid. I think this one is going to be there too. Speaking of how I learned about Marbury versus Madison, my constitutional law teacher and scholar was the late, great Walter Dellinger, Solicitor General under Clinton, Office of White House Counsel, and he had a son. His son is named Hampton Dellinger, who I used to play pickup basketball with at Duke Law School when he used to come over. He was at UNC, but he came over and played pickup basketball with his father's class. We used to go over the little home week here. We used to go over to this place called the Bubble at Duke Law School, which was next to a parking lot. It was like in the woods, and we had one basketball court. We all played there. But Hampton Dellinger is a Boy Scout. He's devoted his life, like his father and his mother, and Dellinger was the head of government studies at University of North Carolina. He's dedicated his life to public service, being a lawyer in the furtherance of public service, and was a perfect pick by Joe Biden and any president to be the head of the Office of Special Counsel, which is not what it sounds like. The Office of Special Counsel is not Jack Smith's of the world. The Office of Special Counsel is a little bit of a misnomer. It is the office within the executive branch that is responsible, almost like an ombudsperson, to defend the interest and prosecute the interest of federal workers at places like the Merit Protection Service Board, to make sure that their rights are upheld, to make sure that their civil servants' rights and labor union rights or whatever are upheld. It's a very important position. It's usually a 5-year term so that it kind of overlaps and isn't politicized. But Donald Trump makes everything political. The only one so far he hasn't gone after that he threatened was Jay Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, only because the Wall Street people around him told him, don't F with Jay Powell, because he's the only thing that'll keep the economy spinning in the right direction, and don't F with him and the market won't like it. Short of that, he's decided to fire the FBI director on a 10-year term and Hampton Dellinger. Hampton Dellinger wasn't going to take it lying down. He was like 3 weeks in or a month into the 5-year term. So he filed his motion for temporary restraining order, and he got it granted. And the judge said, we're going to do a preliminary injunction in a few days. Maybe 8 or 9 days, but I'm going to give you a temporary restraining order right now. He is not to be fired. He is reinstated as the head of the Office of Special Counsel. He's appearing in court through his office in places like the Merit Protection Service Board and all of that. It's driving Donald Trump batty because he doesn't want Hampton Dellinger. He wants some lackey of his own choosing in that position. And so he's trying to remove him. And they filed all sorts of papers with the court to try to convince her not to put him back into that office. And they then took an appeal that we reported on last week to the United States Supreme Court for stop John Roberts. And John Roberts and even the others took a look at it and said, this is a little premature. You're on a temporary restraining order. The judge is going to hold a hearing on the preliminary injunction in about 5 days. I don't know what your rush is. We're going to not deal with this. We're going to let the judge do her job, the trial court judge. We'll see you all back here in about 8 days. Well, the 8 days went by. The judge held a hearing today, and she's not ready. She said, I need 3 more days. It's just 3 more days. She needs till Monday, March 1st. It's a short month to finish the briefing, finish the reading, finish the writing, doing a 30, 40, 50-page preliminary injunction order. She's not ready. So she extended the temporary restraining order, and it drove Donald Trump batty. He wrote a letter through his acting solicitor general to the clerk of the United States Supreme Court, asking the letter to be circulated to all the rest of the justices, saying, see, we got to wait 3 more days. And now he's appearing at hearings and he's asking for extensions on probationary workers being fired. And so he's a fired special counsel that's exercising executive power. Oh my God. I really, what did you make of the letter and the whining? And what do you think the Supreme Court's going to do when they get that letter? She's only asking, so you think they're going to intervene before March 1st?
No. Okay. No way. Right. No, not without a doubt. I don't know that Hampton Dellinger is going to win, but I'm really happy that he's pushing this. And of course, they're going to let him have 3 more days. I mean, that's just an absurd thing. But you know what offends me is all the taxpayer dollars that are going to have to that he's using all of the solicitor general and all of the people. Those are people all going to be paid by taxpayer dollars who have to go and defend Donald Trump's illegal actions in court. It's just such a waste there. That's where the fraud and waste is. Why does he keep doing all these things and firing people illegally? And then utilizing government employees who are paid by tax dollars. I'm going to say that over and over again, because it's just, that is what the absolute waste is here, not the money that's going to others. And one more thing I just want to say about this, which is, the irony that as I listen to you say this, Popok, and as I listen to you talk about this, all I could think about is how much money does Elon Musk get from the government as a subsidy, right? Or as contracts, or as whatever you want to call it. How much taxpayer dollars does Elon Musk continue to get and has gotten since Donald Trump has taken office? Where's the cutting there? Why is he only taking money from poor people? That's exactly what he's doing. He's taking money from the hardworking men and women around this country who are the civil servants and the people who are working hard, middle-class Americans, and people who need it, people who are either down on their luck or for whatever reason aren't making ends meet. The people who really need the money are the ones who are getting cut, not him, who is the biggest. He's probably one of the biggest government subsidized people in this country.
Welcome back. A full-length podcast, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the #1 Midas Touch Network. Legal AF, with your help, is also at the intersection of law and politics, the leading podcast of that genre. We appreciate you. We're glad you're here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Take a minute and hit the free subscribe button. If you already know about Legal AF, that you're part of that audience already, we appreciate you being there, making your journey part of our journey. If you don't know about Legal AF, the full-length podcast, join us Wednesdays, Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network. And then we do hot takes like this about every hour right here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.